the need to escalate the country to COVID alert level 4.
We are seeing a significant reduction in mobility. And if yesterday's reduction in numbers is an indication, maybe the current alert levels are adequate. We need to try to take that risk-based approach and try to keep the economy open unless we are seeing signs that the current levels of alert levels are not working.
The upward trend in COVID-19 cases in Metro Manila is now compounded with spikes in 4 other regions as government is restricting mobility of the unvaccinated. How can further increases be prevented outside of the NCR? We discuss in this episode of The Chiefs. Welcome to this midweek edition of The Chiefs. I'm Ed Lingao, and also with us, Ana Marie Pamintor of the Philippine Star, Luchi Cruz Valdez, the head of News 5, and Robbie Lampay of One News. Robbie and ladies, happy midweek.
Happy midweek.
Happy hump day.
Okay, hump day.
Not so happy as usual.
Oh, Ami, what's getting you depressed now?
Not so happy nga. Kaya di ba balik tayo sa past 30,000
Oh yes,
days.
yes, that is correct.
24 areas
Yeah.
ang nadagdag na alert level 3. Talagang makakalap na yung cases na naman, yung spike.
Yeah, but if it's any consolation, it's today's figure is not as high as I think Monday's.
Wednesday.
Although lumapit siya. So it's a bit of a question right now on whether or not the seesawing is any indication if we're going to hit a plateau or if it's just a momentary cuff in the figures.
Mga 1 or 2 weeks pa yung plateau na yan. Iba yung mga researchers.
Yeah, maybe I shouldn't have used the word cuff in the in that question.
Pero mahalaga rin at least we're hitting the second week of January. So hopefully we're looking at the numbers that also reflect literally the post-holiday. So we're going to start seeing also some effect there.
Yeah.
Okay, and then we have new policies across the board being implemented. In particular,
Kaya lalo naghihigpit nga.
Segue
Kaya
mo na.
na-segue mo
I'm just leading to your segue.
Kaya lalo naghihigpit ngayon mga unvaccinated, including COVID transmission.
Bakit ba silang pinaparusahan?
Well, that is a question asked by many.
Although I'm vaccinated, but I am. But I feel, I feel them.
Yeah. Well, that is a question asked by several lawyers and by several civil liberties groups. Although it's a question that they ask, but it's also a question that they also prefer to leave open-ended. So parang wala silang firm answers din there. And so let's bring in our first guest for tonight so we can talk about this further. Joining us tonight is Undersecretary Reiner Yebra of the Department of Transportation. Sir, magandang gabi and thank you for joining us. And welcome to The Chiefs.
Good evening, Yusek.
Good evening, Yusek.
Sir Ed, Ma'am Ami, Ma'am Luchi, and Sir Robbie, magandang gabi po at magandang gabi po din sa lahat ng inyong mga viewers.
Yes, sir. Well, thank you again for joining us. Sir, medyo straightforward naman yung policy being implemented by the DOTR, yung no rides for the unvaccinated. Pero I suppose the big question right now is are the exemptions kasi dun sa exemptions naman talaga magkakatalo lahat yan In particular, for example, exemption dun sa those who are buying essential goods and services and so on down the line. In terms of implementation, how do you intend to implement this? I mean, anybody can just say, bibili ako ng bigas, bibili ako ng and so on down the line, di ba? How do you dun sa paghihimay on the ground level, how do you figure out which one is valid and which one is not?
Tama po, Sir Ed. Meron pong mga exemptions dun sa department order na pinirmahan ni Secretary Artugade. At ang pangalawa nga po dun ay when you are going out to buy or avail of essential goods or services. Ang nakalagay po sa department order ni Secretary Art, ang mga different regulatory agencies po ay magka-craft ng implementing guidelines kung paano nila may papatupad yung no vaccination, no right policy. Ang isa pong nakikita po namin ay maaari mong magtalaga ng mga transport marshals or kaya mga DOTR or agency personnel para mag-monitor po. Doon naman ho sa kanilang proof of exemption, meron ho nakalagay noon na kung kayo po ay halimbawang authorized na lumabas, meron po kayong health pass or any other equivalent document, ayun ho ay maaaring gamitin. Kasi po, meron ho kasi IATF guideline na inilabas na kapag alert level 3, mga piling tao lang ho yung pwedeng lumabas. So kung sila ho ay otorisado na lumabas at sila ho ay merong kaukulang patunay, pwede ho nilang gamitin yon upang makasakay ho ng public transportation.
So you mean yung quarantine pass dati, pwede yon, yung dating ginagamit natin?
Opo ma'am, kung halimbawang yun po ay sufisyente upang makalabas po kayo ng bahay under alert level 3, pwede mong gamitin yon at kayo po ay exempted dun sa department order.
Paano yung mga tricycle? Iba tricycle kasama?
Kung may paliwanag ko lang po sana Ma'am Ami, yung pong mandato ng DOTR ay covered lamang po ang mga buses, ships at mga train at mga taxis and jeeps. Yun ho mga tricycle, under po yan ng local government units, under the local government code. So hindi mo siya sakop ng department order.
So linawin ko na pa, maglalabas pa po ng implementing rules and guidelines. You know? When are we expecting the final rules for this to be clarified?
Sir Robbie, ginagawa na po yun at katunayan may mga nakita na po kaming na ilabas kanina. Ang full implementation po kasi, sabi ni Secretary Art, ay sa Lunes. Ngayong darating na Lunes, upang mabigyan din ho ng sufisyenteng oras yung ating mga mananakay, yung mga hindi bakunado, at kung sino man yung riding public, para ho makapaghanda.
Now, something more basic po sa exemption. Even before exemption, the whole question of how do we monitor who is vaccinated or not vaccinated to start with? How confident are we with the documents and the systems in place? And for that matter, yung efficiency ng monitoring all of these people, not just the unvaccinated, but literally everybody.
Opo. If I may po, Sir Robbie, dun ho sa department order at base din ho sa pag-aaral po namin, may mga dokumento kung kailangan ipakita, pwede hong physical, pwede digital copy, yun ho either issued ng LGU, yung either issued ng DOH, or even IATF prescribed documents to prove na kayo po ay bakunado. At bukod po doon, kailangan maipakita niyo rin po na meron po kayong government ID with name and address para sigurado ho na yung pangalan sa vaccination card ay siya nga pong nakalagay doon sa government-issued ID. Doon naman ho sa issue on reliability, meron ho kasing batas na nagpaparusa pag kayo po ay namimeke ng mga vaccination cards. So kumbaga, we rely on that as a kumbaga deterrent para dun sa mga tao na mameke ng vaccination cards, knowing na they will be subject to criminal and civil prosecution kung mahuli man po sila.
Okay, so kunyari typical, no? Kunyari unvaccinated, nagtatrabaho at nagpa-public transport. Ano pong gagawin nila? Pupunta muna sila sa barangay nila para sabihin na may trabaho ko, or will their company ID suffice? So that's one case, no? Iba-iba. Yung ganun ba, will the company ID suffice para sabihin na tatrabaho ko, and that's, di ba, kasama yun sa mga exceptions, right? Tama ba, Yusek? Am I reading this ordinance right? Order right?
Opo, ma'am. Kasi if I may be allowed to explain, Ma'am Lucy, under IATF guidelines po kasi, pag under alert level, may mga allowed industries lang po na pwedeng magtrabaho. So sila po yung ina-allow. And then they are allowed to work pursuant to the IATF guidelines and existing labor laws. So yung pong whatever document they have to show na sila po ay otorisado under alert level 3 or higher, pwede na po iyon na maging proof of exemption.
Kahit na unvaccinated. Kahit unvaccinated.
Opo,
we're talking about the unvaccinated, no? Tapos, kunyari, so mag-grocery or whatever, essential, unvaccinated. So, kukuha muna ng permit sa barangay. Ganun ba yun? I mean, paano yun? So bago siya mag-grocery, punta muna siya sa barangay, hihingi siya ng proof.
Kung meron po siyang quarantine pass or yung barangay health pass that allows that individual na lumabas pa ng bahay, yun ho ay maaari nang gamitin upang maipakita sa mga public transportation operators.
Okay, so pag wala, kailangan kumuha muna siya. So
Opo, ma'am.
talagang, and in a state of, well, alert level 3, no, na medyo magre-risk talaga siya rin na lumabas, no, at pumila. So ganun ang situation nila. Tapos yung mga hindi makapag-vaccine kasi nga may medical condition, yun naman, pupunta muna sila sa doktor nila, kukuha muna ng health certificate. Ganun ho ba yun? Paano?
Yes, ma'am. Pagka po kayo ay merong medical condition that allows, that prohibits or that prevents you from getting vaccinated, sufficiente po yung medical certificate na inisyu ng inyong doktor na kung saan nakalagay din po yung pangalan at cellphone or contact number ng doktor para ma-verify naman po.
Okay, so pwede na yun na parang text lang or well, parang what is it, a photograph of the certificate. That should suffice kung may telepono. Kung hindi, they have to physically get the certificate, right? Kasi
Opo,
marami
ma'am.
akong kilala na hindi vaccinated pero wala naman sila mga ganyan. So now, they will have to secure all of those. No?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Tama po kayo. Kasi, Ma'am Amy, if I may be allowed to explain, yung isa naman po kasing objective ng department order, kumbaga, sumatalima po kami sa utos ng Presidente na protektahan yung mga hindi bakunado.
Yes, yes.
Pagka po kasi hindi bakunado, they are more susceptible to getting severe COVID infections. And if they go out and if they use public transportation, they risk themselves and the other passengers and the other public transport personnel. At kung magkaroon po sila ng severe COVID infection, they might unduly burden our healthcare system who's already in a critical stage. So kumbaga para ho, to protect them, to protect the unvaccinated, to protect the vaccinated, and to protect our personnel, it's better na they stay put at home at huwag na lang po silang lumabas kung hindi naman essential. Sa katunayan po, if I may add one more point, lahat po ng mga, meron pong resolution na inisyo ang Metro Manila Council at meron din pong ordinansa na pinasa ang mga LGU sa NCR. Ipinagbabawal po nila ang mga unvaccinated na lumabas ng bahay at ipinagbabawal din po sila na gumamit ng public transportation. So with that LGU ordinance, it supplements yung department order na pinirmahan po ng Secretary Art because the department order is basically addressed to the operators of the public utility vehicles.
Yes, sir. Sir, but not that I want to complicate the discussion, pero let me just give you an example. Kasi hindi masyadong even yung record keeping ng gobyerno and we are counting on certain records like yung vaccine certificates or vaccine cards and so on the line. And for example, yung VaxCert. I have a friend visiting from Sulu, a colleague as well. She went from Sulu, she went to Central Luzon, and she tried to take a bus back. And this was just the other day, so hindi pa nagsisimula yung full implementation ito ng no vaccine, no ride policy. Ayaw siyang pasakayin ng bus even though she already had two full doses, and a booster shot. Dahil sa VaxCert, she got a VaxCert certificate, nakarecord lang doon ang second shot niya. Ang booster shot niya, card niya, wala nakalagay na first and second dose, nakalagay lang booster. So ayaw tanggapin ng bus, hindi siya makasakay. And this was before the full implementation of this no vaccination, no ride policy. So may unevenness dun sa implementation and sa record keeping as well. So it might be a challenge for government.
Opo, Sir Ed. Ang definition po kasi ng department order na pinirmahan ni Secretary Art for mga fully vaccinated ay kung may 2 weeks after the second dose on a 2-dose vaccination series. Kung 1-dose vaccination series po yon, 2 weeks after said dose. So, logically, kung may booster shot po kayo, ibig sabihin, natapos nyo na po yung prescribed doses.
Yes, sir. That's my point eh. That's my point eh. Nakatatlong dose na siya pero ayaw pa sakayin kasi magkakaibang records.
Opo. So I think the implementing guidelines should clarify this. Kasi klaro din naman po yung department order kung sino yung considered as fully vaccinated individuals.
Apa. But Yusek, I think this goes back to my earlier question. No? Kasi I think when I agree, no, when it comes to guidelines, kayang linawin ng guidelines. Pero let's face it, ang sugal ng maraming Pilipino dyan is hindi naman nagche-check na eh. And alam din nila that the systems, because not everything is in a database, na the technology is not actually in place on many situations. Ang sugal nila dyan is it's going to be too inefficient to actually be checking papers kahit pa may number dyan ng doktor kung pwedeng i-check. So I think it goes back, the point of the question earlier really was, do we have the infrastructure and the technological solutions in place so that this is not only effective but also efficient?
Yes, sir. For now po, for iba't ibang sector, meron po sila mga iba't ibang pamamaraan na kung paano ma-implement po yun. Yun nga po yung pinapaliwanag ko kanina, we left the implementing details to these agencies. The department order serves as a general guideline. So ang isa nga pong nakikita namin, tulad ng sinabi ko kanina, maaaring tama po kaya na mano-mano, i-inspectionin po ng mga marshals at ng mga DOTR personnel. Pero maaaring mo sa mga airports, halimbawa, meron nung require naman mo yan, bago kayo bumili ng ticket, halimbawa, so iba-ibang sector, iba-ibang approach po. Pero ang importante po ay yung basic policy na pag wala ko kayo, hindi ko kayo bakunado, mas mainam po na stay at home at huwag na pong gamitin yung public transportation.
So ano po ang consequences sa violator on the part of the passenger and on the part of the transport operator at saka yung driver o piloto or whatever? Anong consequences sa kanila?
Okay. Pagka halimbawa po kayo po ay operator ng public transportation, sa department order, yung violation po ng department order na yon ay magiging, kumbaga, ititreat siya as a violation ng inyong charter or kaya authority or permit to operate. So, may procedure po yan under sa charter ng mga agencies, halimbawa LTFRB, doon po ay magkakaroon ng proceeding dahil nagkaroon po kayo ng violation. Yun naman po sa mga pasahero or dun sa mga individual, vaccinated individual, yun po yung sinasabi ko kanina, meron po mga LGU ordinances. At sa aming pag-aaral po ng mga ordinansang yun, may mga penalties po doon. Na pag nahuli po kayong lumalabas or ginagamit yung public transportation, maaari po kayong magkaroon ng fine at meron po kung ibang ordinances na nakita, meron pong detention at meron mga iba naman ay warning lamang. Pero yun po, ang nag-i-impose po nun, yung local government unit na po.
Paano kung wala pa yung ordinances? I understand may 3 pang lugar sa Metro Manila yung wala pang ganong ordinance.
Sa pagkakaalam ko po, Ma'am Amy, of course, subject to verification, parang isa na lang po ata, but still, kung wala pong ordinance, wala akong basis to penalize the resident or the unvaccinated individual. Pero, meron ng basihan para ma-penalize yung operator.
So yung pasahero, hindi will they be apprehended? Kasi merong punitive, diba? Apprehended ba? Anong gagawin sa kanya? Arrestuhin, apprehension, pauuwi lang siya.
Ano naman po, tulad nung sinabi ni Secretary Tugade kanina umaga, ang DOTR po mag-o-observe ng maximum tolerance. So kung halimbawa nagpunta po kayo sa isang public transportation, hindi kayo vaccinated, lalagay lang po kayo sa isang isolation or ihiwalay po kayo sa mga ibang tao para hindi ko kayo mahawa. At wala naman kami yung power to arrest them or to penalize them.
So parang hindi lang pa sasakayin, yun lang yun, no? Yun ang pinaka magiging direct sanction nila. They can't ride. So some people are saying that this is anti-poor, no? Because it's, well, those without cars in general, no? Who avail of public transport. Paano po kaya? What do you say to this?
Well, Ma'am Amy, kung Ma'am Lucy, kung halimbawang kami po ang tatanungin, hindi naman mo siya anti-poor. Kasi ang anti-poor po, pinagbabawalan ninyo, kami po may exceptions eh. Kung kailangan mong lumabas dahil meron kang importante or essential na gagawin, papayagan ka naman. At ito po ay actually pinoprotektahan pa nga po yung mga hindi bakunado. So medyo fallacy po yung argument na anti-poor siya sapagkat hindi ho siya absolute restriction. May exceptions po pag justified. And secondly, kung titingnan niyo po yung totality ng objective, gusto ko namin protektahan yung buhay ng mga tao. Kaya mahirap, kaya mayaman, lahat ho kailangan maprotektahan. Hindi lang yung pasahero, pati po yung mga personnel ng public transport, pati yung mga healthcare workers natin. So kumbaga parang we are encouraging everyone to cooperate. Of course, we want everyone to get vaccinated. Pero kung hindi naman mo posible yun, at this point, we're encouraging everyone to help para ho at least hindi ho ma-unburden yung unduly burden yung ating healthcare system at ma-contain yung transmission. Kasi ho, may studies naman ho talaga eh. Sorry, go ahead, Ma'am Lucy.
Okay, so just to really push the envelope a little bit more, no? We all know now that those who were vaccinated 6 months ago, 5 months ago, 4 months ago, and possibly even 3 months ago, wala nang epekto yung mga bakuna ng mga yan unless nagpa-booster sila. And many of us who have been double vaccinated have not had boosters. I'm one of them. So essentially, aren't we unreasonably discriminating against the unvaccinated when really at this point in our fight against COVID, ang dami na rin naman talagang yung double vaccinated na wa-effect na rin yung bakuna nila. I mean, I'm just trying to lay the groundwork for the logic of this mandate.
Yes, ma'am. Kung a-analyzein po natin yung datos, 91% na po sa NCR vaccinated. So may minority po na 9% na unvaccinated. And they are intended to be protected by allowing them or by mandating them to stay put and stay at home. Ngayon, kung halimbawa pong hindi naman po ako doktor, so hindi ko po masasabi kung hindi ko madidiscuss or ma-argue yung efficacy ng bakuna. Pero based on the data that we have and the basis of our study, talagang ang pinaka-severe talaga na may COVID infection ay yung mga unvaccinated. Pag bakunado po, mild ang symptoms or minsan asymptomatic. So kumbaga at least hindi ho very critical yung kanilang predicament kung mahawa man sila.
Okay. Transportation Undersecretary Rainer Yebra. Sir, maraming salamat for joining us tonight. At ingat po.
Thank you.
Salamat din po.
Yusek.
Maraming salamat po.
We will just go into a break, so please stay with us. Welcome back to the Chiefs on One News, and now joining us is Professor Jomar Rabahante of the UP Pandemic Response Team. Sir, good evening and welcome back to the Chiefs.
Yes, good
Good evening, sir.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening, sir. Sir, parang ang lamig ng lugar ninyo o nasa Los Baños kayo ngayon?
Ganda.
Naka-aircon lang po, sorry.
Okay. Sir,
Okay.
Sir, let me start off kasi baka mamaya nag-chills kayo. But let me start off with
Ay,
this.
di naman. Although currently isolated ako kasi I have someone here sa bahay na nag-positive. Pero
Okay, sir.
wala naman ng kwarto.
Okay, sir. Ingat po. Sir, let me start off with this. In the past 3 or 4 days, we've been seeing a bit of a seesawing ng numbers. I'm talking about the positivity rate as well as yung new cases. Are we seeing something significant in the seesawing of the numbers? Umakyat ulit today pero hindi umabot doon sa numbers nung Monday. Again nga, are we seeing something significant here or is it too early to tell?
Yeah, it's too early to tell. Actually, even nung Delta surge natin nung September, meron tayong tinatawag na weekend effect. Kasi usually kapag weekends, medyo mas konti yung samples na napaprocess. At yun yung na-report kahapon, kaya nasa 28,000 lang tayo. No? So ngayon, bumalik tayo kasi may mga na-process ulit after the weekend. And kailangan natin i-monitor itong mga susunod na araw if really magpaplato tayo or tataas pa ulit or magsimula na mag-decline. Because, may indicators naman na etong nangyayari sa NCR ay slowing down. Increasing, but the speed is slowing down. So, somehow, sana makita natin yun sa mga susunod na araw.
Deceleration,
If you take the experience from Delta and past surges, what's a reasonable window of time para medyo mas confident kayo to say na ito mukhang trend na to?
Yeah, usually kailangan nating tingnan yan for the whole week kung talagang bumaba yung cases natin. Kasi usually every day merong mga randomness yan due to, yung weekend effect or siguro yung mga samples na na-process, baka may delay. So, kailangan nating hintayin yan after a week. Kaya siguro baka next week mas maging confident tayo if masabi nating nag-plateau or nagsuslow down talaga or magde-decline. And we hope naman talaga na mag-decline ito sa NCR. Sadly, dun sa ating mga ibang provinces ay todo yung pag-increase. So medyo may ripples na tayong nakikita, lalo na kung saan ako nakatira dito sa Region 4A and also sa Region 3.
But is it really the number of cases that is the critical number? Or isn't it the attack rate maybe or the positivity rate more than the number? Kasi alam naman natin ngayon ang dami sigurong hindi na nagpapatest or positive nga sa antigen pero hindi na nire-report, no? So what is a more accurate indicator that it's plateauing or not?
Actually, ang dapat tinitingnan dito, lahat ng indicators. Hindi pwedeng isa lang. Because one indicator can just provide us one snapshot of the storyline ng epidemics natin. Yes, totoo, yung actual number might not be the actual number kasi maraming hindi nagpapatest. But still, itong reported cases natin can provide us the trend. No? So kaya kailangan din siyang somehow i-check. Pero definitely kailangan i-check din yung positivity rate because the positivity rate will provide us insight kung kailangan i-increase yung testing, no? And then andyan papasok yung hospitalization. Hospitalization will provide us information kung maraming severe or critical. So lahat po yan kailangan tingnan.
Professor, nabanggit niyo yung regions and kahit mag-plateau sa NCR, ang problema sa ibang regions, in fact, may nadagdag nga ngayon na 28 areas na alert level 3, ang problema sa labas, mas mababa yung vaccination rate nila. How worrisome is this in terms of pandemic response?
Actually, even hindi pa natin nakikita yung increase sa mga provinces, lagi na naming sinasabi yan. Kasi una, nangyari yan nung alpha surge natin. If you remember, that's the surge nung March-April sa NCR. After the March-April, nagkaroon tayo ng ripple sa mga provinces. And yung mga provinces natin, alam natin ngayon, mababa yung coverage. Kung sa NCR, 70% plus yung coverage natin compared sa total population, sa ating mga provinces, lalo na sa Visayas, Mindanao, less than 40%, which is napakalayo pa dun sa target natin. And another one na mas malala is alam natin, sa NCR kasi medyo marami yung ICU beds natin. Sa provinces maraming wala or kokonti lang talaga. So kailangan natin silang protektahan. Kasi nangyari yan nung alpha surge natin and also the delta na yung mga provinces, narinig natin dun sa mga news before kung i-rewind natin yung time, talagang nahirapan sila dun sa hospitalizations.
Yes, sir. Secretary Duque was talking about increases in the numbers in Region 1, 2, 3, and 4A. But he failed to give us specifics. What can you tell us about the increases? By how much are we looking at? And are they alarming already or just an uptrend?
Yeah. Doon sa Region 3 and Region 4A, definitely nandun tayo talaga sa alarm, kasi nalampasan na ng Region 3 and Region 4A yung Delta surge natin ng September. So halos yung NCR, Region 3, Region 4A nasa the same page, kung titingnan natin yung ibang mga regions, nandun pa sila sa hindi pa lumalampas as the Delta surge pero sobrang steep din ng kanilang increase. Although kung titingnan natin hospitalizations, medyo slow yung increase, but there are some, lalo na no, dito sa NCR, medyo nag-increase din yung hospitalizations.
Yeah.
So, titingnan natin sa provinces, posibleng may mga increase din ganyan na lalabas.
Eh, di ba na-establish na nga na dominant variant nga raw yung Omicron ngayon, or at least the Philippine Genome Center's numbers seem to show that, no? But, well, I think the other side of it is the fact that the Delta obviously is still the 40% of it, no? What kind of monitoring is being done as far as that is concerned? Because that remains to be a greater threat kung tutuusin, especially to health, no? Kasi alam naman natin na karamihan ng mga Omicron, panay mild to moderate lang. Is there any monitoring of the deltas?
Yeah. Actually, ang talagang pinaka-ultimate monitoring natin dito ay talagang mag-genome sequencing tayo. Yan talaga yung ultimate na magagawa natin. But somehow, in terms of our estimates, kami mga data, infectious disease modelers and data analytics people, tinitingnan namin yung trend. Kasi nung unang-una talaga, inisip na namin na mabilis maging dominant yung Omicron. Why? Because nung mga late November, early December, kukunti na rin kasi yung reported Delta. So in terms of manguna yung Omicron, hindi mahihirapan yung Omicron na una, no? Pero remember, meron pa rin tayong Delta ngayon, and Delta is so severe compared sa Omicron, no? Ang problema natin, madalas hindi rin ito nasasabi sa mga tao, no, na merong waning of immunity tayo. Yung mga nagkasakit na dati, posibleng mag-wane yung immunity nila. Like a flu, no? Kunyari sa flu, nagka-flu ka, for some weeks, immune ka, pero after that, pwede ka magka-flu ulit. And somehow, nakikita natin yan sa mga studies. Maraming studies na rin abroad nito, no? So may waning of immunity. And also, in terms of vaccination, kaya tayo nagpapa-booster shots, there's also some indication na nag-wane yung immunity natin. And ang problem dito is, for example, in the future, probably not now, no? Kasi may Omicron na kumakalat. Ang kagandahan kasi sa Omicron, ayoko sabihin kagandahan, no? Kasi ayaw nating mahawa. What I mean is, kung nahawa tayo ng Omicron, there's somehow less probability na mahawa tayo ng Delta.
Yes.
But in the future, kung humupa na rin ng Omicron at may Delta pang kumakalat, posibleng mag-wane yung immunity natin. Kasi ito yung tinatawag na endemic, no? Posibleng in the future, umangat ulit yung Delta. So kailangan mapalawak talaga at maging ma-sustain yung genome sequencing natin.
Yes, sir. Sir, you talked about the worrisome numbers in 4A and Region 3. What are the chances that we will see a surge in those two regions, just like what we saw in Metro Manila, which is alarming in itself? But those two regions, I think their populations are greater than that of the NCR, although mas kalat sila kasi mas malawak.
Actually, may surge na talaga ngayon. Dito pa lang kung saan ako, nasa Laguna, people around, if you go outside the village, many people are saying na may lagnat sila at nagpa-positive sila sa antigen test. So, meron na talaga. I think siguro almost similar na sa NCR. Ang kagandahan lang sa Region 4A and Region 3, tama yung sinabi mo, no, na less dense kami dito.
Yes.
So, in terms of mobility, siguro hindi ganun kabilis magkahawaan agad. But currently, kalat na rin po talaga dito sa Region 4A.
Prof, I'm just wondering, para sa mga data scientists right now, you know, and you're trying to model and you're trying to see what's really happening, but in terms of pieces of data, saan kayo bulag ngayon?
Yeah. Ganito po yung ginagawa namin, no? Kasi syempre, alam natin ang validated, ang official data ay galing sa DOH. But we also search for other data sets. Pupunta kami sa mga LGUs, we ask for their local data sets para somehow ma-compare, and pagkulang, mailagay namin yung LGU data set, no? But dun sa tanong mo saan kami nagkukulang ngayon, wala po tayong or nabubulag or hindi nakikita natin, no? Wala po tayong data ilan ang nag-positive sa antigen test. So yan yung una. We only know RT-PCR. So yan yung unang-unang parang sana nare-record, no? Kasi sa ibang bansa may mga self-testing kits sila, but they have a way to report. Pero sa atin wala talaga, no? So yun yung una na hindi na ilalabas. And pangalawa, kung titingnan natin, no, in terms of yung paghihintay paghihintay. Like katulad ngayon, yung DOH data drop, hindi pa na, yung January 10 na DOH data drop ay hindi pa na-upload ng DOH. Ano yung DOH data drop? Kasi usually may nilalabas na bulletin yung DOH, no? Yun lang yung nakikita ng publiko. Pero merong raw data na ina-upload ang DOH na may access kami na gagawa namin ng further analysis. Yung January 10 yung last na na-upload, yung kahapon, and today wala pa. So, yung mga ganyang delay...
what about waning efficacy? Are you able to monitor that? For example, sa mga pasyente na 2 bakuna pero wala pang booster, are you able to parse through that data and be able to have some conclusions or theories as to at what point and in how many months we can say some people mukhang bumababa talaga ang immunity?
Ang sagot dyan sa Philippines, wala pa po tayo. We don't have that much study. Most of the studies ng waning of immunity ay galing sa international researchers natin. No, so yan yung isang kulang natin dito pa. Another one, we don't really know kung sa buong Pilipinas or sa isang locality ilan talaga yung nahawa na kasi wala tayong yung antibody surveillance natin, wala. So marami po tayong mga ganyan na sana may gumawang research project or program para napag-aralan ito, but we don't have those kinds of data.
Professor, sabi nga ng DOH, hindi nga daw accurate, baka underreported nga daw yung mga cases natin dahil yung mga antigen testing hindi nare-report. Gaano kalaki impact nun actually sa mga projections nyo?
Yes.
Gaano malaki? Kasi may nagsabi na sa amin na at sa a certain point, they will be flying blind na mahihirapan na sila mag-project. Tama ba yun?
Yes, lalo na pag umabot na yung positivity rate natin ng more than 50% because it's like 50-50,
Exactly.
no? Malapit na tayo. Definitely, there's a huge impact. Although we can estimate, pero lumalaki yung error range namin. So, kaya nung nilabas namin yung unang projections namin, di ba nung nagsisimula itong Omicron, the UP Pandemic Response Team released our projections na we might have the peak earliest mid-January, latest yung 3rd of February, and posibleng 20 to 40,000 yung reported, not including the unreported. Kung makikita nyo, yung 20 to 40 ang laki ng error range namin kasi nga we don't know kung ilan yung testing capacity na gagawin, no? At eto nga, within projections pa naman yung aming nilabas, pero nandun tayo sa medyo upper bound. So yun po yung impact.
Kaya nyo bang i-project, halimbawa, you are factoring in transmissibility, di ba, sa number of cases. Kung medyo accurate pa naman yung data, kasi sinasabi ngayon ng ibang mga scientists, at a certain point daw, sobrang kasing bilis ng transmission, pero mabilis ding mawala, bigla na lang daw babagsak yan. At magiging endemic na siya. Kaya nyo bang i-project yon based on what you are getting at this point?
Yeah, meron po kami ginagawang long-term projections and short-term projections. Yung long-term, maganda yan up to mga 6 months, no? Ang ginagawa namin dito, just to explain sa mga manonood natin, yung minimimic namin, ginagaya namin yung nangyayaring transmission around. And we program that sa computer and we do computer simulations. And we run many scenarios sa computer. Ganun po yung ginagawa namin, no? Now, etong projections na to, kaya namang makita kung mag-endemic siya, no? At kailan posibleng mag-peak. Although I want to quantify yung ibig sabihin ng pagbaba. Kasi yung ibang isipin ng iba, nag-peak ngayon, baka after a week, hupa na siya. Hindi po. Katulad po sa South Africa, mabilis din naman yung pag-decline, no? Pero hindi siya few days lang. Nag-peak sila ng December 17 but still nandun sila sa declining phase. Wala pa sila sa low level. Currently po, ang aming projections dito is kung nag-peak tayo, let's say sa NCR, magde-decline siya. Usually, may declining phase yan after ng epidemics, no? Kasi marami nang nahawa. Yung low level na parang pre-Omicron, kung sabihin natin pre-Omicron data natin, posibleng mangyari pa yan at the end of February or sa March pa. Pero depende pa rin ito sa mangyayari around kasi alam natin campaign period, may Valentine's pa sa February. So, yan yung mga kailangang tingnan natin sa mga behavior ng people pag nagsimula na yung decline ng peak ng epidemic curve natin.
Na-factor in yung Valentine's bigla.
Ayun na naman sa parang.
Actually,
Ako na-
namin.
Oo nga. Kaya nga, Ed, wag ka na mag-date noon. Sabi ko nga sa'yo eh. What about, ano kaya ang prospects for the elections?
Akala ko for Valentine's.
Specifically, Nina, ikaw lang merong ganun eh. For May 9.
Oo, actually,
Anong mga dapat binabantayan natin yan? Kasi medyo critical yung araw na yan sa atin.
Oo, ang crucial dito kasi kung ang NCR talagang yung projections mangyari na within January or early February magsimula yung decline, posibleng mga May 9 ay nasa low level tayo. Pero again just to remind people, depende ito sa magiging takbo yung
Yes,
mga
sir.
behavior natin ng interventions. So posibleng mag-low level tayo ng May. Pero ang kaba ko dito kasi yung mga provinces. Some provinces baka sobrang delayed yung peak. So we still don't know. Kaya titingnan namin yung province. Alam natin ng national yung yung campaign tsaka yung botohan. Baka may mga provinces na mapag-iwanan. So yan po yung tinitingnan namin, monitor every day.
But sir, do you see any
Hindi
reason?
hindi naman yan nahahak ng mga politiko, no? Mamaya may mga region na biglang magka-search sa election day.
Sana naman po wala.
Professor, doon pa rin ako sa trabaho nyo, no? In trying to get as much data set, as much knowledge as possible. The other night, sabi ni Yusek Vergere, we asked her, sa dami ng kaso ngayon, what does that do to contact tracing? And sinabi niya, actually, yung contact tracing ngayon is gotten to the point na sa totoo lang, ang monitoring natin, nasa bahay na talaga, pamilya na yan, you're contact tracing each other, your friends, and so on. But on an official level, it becomes important really for clinical treatment. We may need to shift the focus to kung sa mga regions, kung saan mababa pa, and pwede pang mas may effect pa ang contact tracing. But again, for you, what does that mean in terms of the data and the knowledge that you're able to collect?
Yeah, actually, isa to sa yung contact tracing, isa talaga sa mga nalulungkot kami na hindi natin napaganda. Even nung before pa mag-ECQ dati, sinasabi natin, palawakin, pagandahin, maging efficient yung contact tracing. Kasi totoo naman talaga, kapag nasa surge ka na, nandun ka sa napakaraming kaso, ang hirap talagang mag-contact tracing. Usually, effective ang contact tracing dun sa preventive stage, no? Na mapigilan natin yung tinatawag nating initiation phase na hindi agad mag-outbreak. Pero ang layo na natin doon, nandito na talaga tayo sa surge. But we think etong contact tracing can still be useful kasi alam natin may mga lugar sa Pilipinas na halos kokonti pa yung cases. No? For example, in Laguna, kasi pag nagsabi tayo ng Laguna, baka ang nakikita yung aggregate number. Hindi naman laging ganon. There are municipalities na halos wala pang kaso. So, posibleng effective doon yung contact tracing. So, yun yung kailangan tutukan. Hindi talaga siya totally, wala nang use ang contact tracing kasi ang dami na. There are still mga pwedeng maging advantage ng contact tracing, lalo na dun sa mga cities or municipalities na halos konti pa ang cases. And another one, contact tracing can also help na magbigay ng information, lalo na kung meron kang kapamilya na may comorbidity. For example, lumabas ako, na malengke ako, kapag sayang kasi may contact tracing app sana tayong maganda, di ba? Ang kagandahan doon, pag uwi ko, tapos biglang may nag-positive doon, at least alam ko na merong nag-positive doon. So, mag-iingat ako para hindi mahawa yung kasama ko sa bahay. But wala, parang sobrang random ngayon.
Prof, sundutin ko lang yung sinabi mo. You mentioned two things. Sinabi niyo, early on pa, nakakuha naman kayo ng data sa mga LGUs and so on. That's useful, DOH and so on. Pero nabanggit mo yung app. Tanong lang, has there ever been an app that has actually been useful for you in terms of giving you data?
Napaka-political ng question na yan. Pero sasabihin ko, wala. Wala po talaga.
Statement of fact yan, wala.
Oo, wala po kaming nagamit na contact tracing data talaga. Kasi ayoko na magbanggit ng pangalan ng contact tracing kasi alam ko may political doon eh. Pero as far as I know, hindi siya naging useful sa atin.
What was the problem? What was the problem with the apps that were there, whether it was officially endorsed by government or private initiative? but especially the ones endorsed by government and ano, what was the main problem at bakit wala kayong makuwang useful na data doon?
Siguro nandun mismo sa design ng app, no, hindi na-integrate masyado yung app. Yung kasi kung titingnan natin, napakadaming datasets. Yung LG yung nga may sariling QR code, di ba? So ako connect ko kaya alam ko ginawa yun, yung mga LGU ginawa nila yung QR code without thinking na i-connect dun sa app, kung yung app na yon. And then yung app na yon hindi agad na-connecta dun sa database ng DOH. Yung, di ba, may mga RT-PCR results, so hindi agad na-connecta. So yung integration, naging magulo. And another one, dun sa app na yon ay hindi na roll out maigi sa ating mga LGUs. Na pag pumunta ka sa isang establishment, yung iba merong app na ginagamit, yung iba wala. Tapos yung iba parang naka-design lang yung kanilang QR doon. So hindi siya na-implement maigi on the ground. So I think may mga disconnects kaya hindi talaga siya naging useful.
Professor, ngayong threatened yung regions, you think it would help kung tatighten yung borders? Para lang hindi magkalat yung tayong mga taga Maynila, hindi kami magkakalat na mikrobyo sa buong Pilipinas.
Theoretically, talagang isa sa magandang way to prevent ang pagkalat ng epidemic ay border control, no? Actually, even in other countries, border control talaga to. Kaso may mga lugar talaga na mahirap yung border control kasi ang daming pwedeng pasukan. So siguro dun sa mga lugar na kayang-kayang mag-border control, why not? I think it's better na gawin yon. Although isang problem dito sa border control is ano yung papakita nila. Kasi hindi pwede yung yung temperature check lang. Kasi sa Omicron posibleng wala kang lagnat pa pero nakahawa ka na. Right? So hindi na rin pwede ngayon yung papakita mo yung vaccination card kasi we know there are breakthrough infections, no? And then another one, dun sa ating pag nagpa-RT-PCR naman tayo na result, ang gastos sa mga nagbabiyahe. Siguro maganda yung border control in some sense para malimitahan yung mobility, pero magandang sabihin na rin natin sa mga mamamayan na if hindi essential yung pag cross natin ng borders, wag na kasi para maprotektahan natin yung communities sa mga provinces.
Sure, I'll go back
Do we
to
have
your
the numbers on other urban areas like Cebu? Kasi noon nung nag-Delta, isa yan sa mga talagang tinamaan din, no? Also Davao, no? But right now, we're not hearing any such surge in those urban areas. Meron ba kayong update doon? And is that something that at the moment they can learn from us in order to prevent an Omicron surge? Is that even possible?
Yeah, lahat po ng mga regions may increase. Yung Region 7 may increase po sila, no? Although yung increase nila is not that parang as high like NCR, nandun parang ano pa lang.
Surge levels. Yeah.
Well, depende kung paano natin sasabihin yung surge, no? Kung i-include natin yung initiation phase. I think may initiation phase na may increase. Pero yung talagang ma-alarma yung mga tao, wala pa sila sa level na yon. Siguro yung lesson dito is wag na nilang paabutin dun sa nangyari sa NCR. Kasi remember, ano na lang, baka may magalit sa aking mga mamamayan. Kasi gusto naman nating mag-enjoy ng New Year, di ba? But naglabas na ng news na there's some increase December 19, a week before Christmas. But tinatrack kasi namin yung Google Mobility. But what happened is, even nung Christmas and New Year, sobrang mas tumaas yung mobility. So, looks like hindi na alarma dun sa news, no, na may nag-i-increase. Kaya after New Year, ayan, todo-todo yung hawaan. So I think sa Cebu, lalo na ngayon, wala namang holidays, no? Malayo-layo pa yung Valentine's. Maiwasan na nila yung sobrang mobility na posibleng magkaroon ng hawaan. Isa kasi sa problem with COVID-19, lalo sa Omicron, no? COVID-19 is airborne. Pwede mo itong makuha pag nasa lugar ka na enclosed at hindi maganda ang ventilation doon sa loob. At alam natin maraming ganyang lugar sa paligid natin. Mga stores, mga workplaces, ang dami. So, yan po yung posibleng pagkuhanan talaga ng COVID-19 and hanggat kaya nating gawing safe yung mga spaces natin, sana gawin ng LGU.
Pero sir, speaking of border controls, you talked already about a surge in Region 3 and 4A. So basically, it's already out of Metro Manila, and Regions 3 and 4A are gateways to all the other regions around Luzon, and it's easy to cross over to Visayas and Mindanao. So at this point, what do we do now?
Actually, mas magandang matanong talaga dun sa Department of Transportation kasi hindi ako transportation expert. But I think theoretically, in terms of epidemiology, to really suppress epidemics, kailangan nating i-stop yung pagsimula, pagsisimulan. Siguro tingin ko one way to suppress yung pagkalat palalo sa mga provinces ay tingnan natin yung mga pumapasok, kung sino-sino. Kasi baka magalit sa akin yung mga magbabakasyon. No? Baka yung mga magbabakasyon na hindi naman essential, baka pwedeng i-discourage muna natin.
Yung mga nagbakasyon.
If kaya, no? Pero alam natin, lalo na ngayon, medyo tapos na naman yung bakasyon, baka sana malimitahan.
Yes, sir.
Yung mga essential siguro yung pwedeng mag-ikot muna. Mga food, mga kailangan natin, mga groceries. Yeah.
Yes, sir. Sir, I'll go back to your earlier projections, yung the range of 20 to 40,000 that was earlier projected for the middle of January until February. I'm wondering lang if that range only factored in the surge in Metro Manila, or it already factored in the possibility that it had already blown up to the other provinces or regions. Yung range po na yun, was that only for Metro Manila? Or do you have a projection pa for the rest of the country?
Yeah, yung ginawa kasi, to answer that, buong Pilipinas na po yun, no?
Okay.
Nagkataon lang kasi, and actually this also happened in Alpha and Delta waves natin. Sobrang dami ng Metro Manila na parang nagiging sobrang liit na lang ng ibang probinsya, no? Although malaki yung effect sa province, pero
The driver talaga sa Metro Manila.
maliit lang talaga yung numero. So hindi siya nakikita at the Philippine level, no? So buong Philippines na po yung 40,000 na yon. Galing din po ito sa simulation namin per regions. In-aggregate lang namin. Pero kung sasabihin ng iba, ito pa talaga yung totoong number. Ito po ay reported cases lang. So,
yes, sir. The PCR test nga sabi niyo. But is there any way to estimate, sir? Sorry, sir. Is there any way to estimate all the cases, including the antigen test? I know we don't have records of that.
Yeah.
Pero is there any way to extrapolate that with what we know of the PCR testing?
Yeah. Actually, sa simulation, kasama yan. Meron kaming population doon ng all cases infected. At merong population doon na asymptomatic lang. May population na tested. So yung nireport namin na 40 projections, yun lang tested ng RT-PCR. If we want to know the actual number na kasama yung mga lahat ng mga mild cases, ay times 10 po natin to estimate that. Although
Professor, I also wanted to ask kasi, on the one hand, we don't want to be, alam natin that if we were to make it a reasonable amount, para ang laki ng numero. But in terms of just pinpointing the trend, on the other side of this, if we were to start giving out the numbers of ito yung model kung isasama natin lahat ng nag-antigen and so on, I also want to ask, is that a valid exercise in terms of identifying the trends, given that in the past months, hindi naman natin ginagawa yon, hindi naman natin sinasama dun sa, ang trends lang talaga natin is always based on reported cases. On the other hand, Omicron was a game changer also, so it's clear we want accurate numbers, but at the same time, for your science and for the narrative that you're trying to extrapolate and tell the story of, what's the valid exercise here? Kasi hindi na apples to apples yun, di ba? In effect, may binago ka na sa methodology.
Yeah. Actually, kaya ang nilalabas lang namin reported cases, yung projections, kasi ito yung kayang i-verify natin on the ground because nandiyan yung data ng DOH. Pero ito pong paglalagay natin ng asymptomatic at mga undetected sa simulation, even nung 2020, ginagawa na po natin yan because we know there might be people like that. Bakit nilalagay yon? Kasi just to provide analogy, no? For example, you are in a room. You are in a room, solo ka sa room. Dun sa room, kunyari, may walang table sa room. Lumabas ka, tapos bumalik ka ulit, pagtingin mo may table na siya. So dun sa table na yun, anong i-extrapolate natin? Isipin natin wala namang pwedeng mangyari doon kundi may naglagay na tao. So ito yung ginagawa namin. What we're doing is yung simulation namin, finifit namin siya sa actual na nangyayari doon sa data ng DOH. At hahanapin namin yung parameters, yung parameter value na mag-fit. At yung sinasabi natin na, for example, estimate times 10 yung mga undetected, ayan yung nagpa-fit doon sa actual data natin. So there are some scientific and mathematical methods to do that.
Okay. And also, I suppose it also gives us an idea kung ilan yung, in a room of people, ilan kaya may sakit na hindi natin alam.
Yeah.
Okay. Fascinating discussion with the Professor Jomar Abahante of the UP Pandemic Research Team. Sir, maraming salamat for joining us tonight at ingat po parati.
Thank you, Prof. Jomar.
Maraming salamat, Prof.
That'll be all for this midweek edition of the Chiefs. We hope what we discuss here will keep the conversation going. Now, before we go, a reminder to our viewers, mask on, wash hands, and stay safe, Philippines. I'm Edwin Gao.
I'm Mami Pamintuan of the Philippine Star.
I'm Lucy Cruz Valdez of News 5.
I'm Robbie Alampay, and we are One News.